Hi, we're talking about the four things that need to happen in order to get more women into leadership. We all know that there is a gap, and we have an expert today who wrote a textbook on this. I'm going to bring her on board soon. I'm the founder. My name is Dr. Elsie Coe, and CEO of Lead Physician Leadership Program for Physicians, and also the Chief Medical Officer of American Endovascular and Amputation Prevention. Please follow us on our YouTube if you're interested in hearing more things about physician leadership and lead physicians, all about building passion, purpose, and giving doctors their potential, which is far greater than what we think it is when we come out of training. Without further ado, let me just introduce you. I'm going to show you a picture here of her book and who she is. I'm so happy to know Patricia Gabow, I'm sorry. And she is the author of this book that we're going to be discussing today, Times Now for Women Healthcare Leaders. And she's a national leader. A national leader in the delivery system of the care of vulnerable population and in innovation. She's also spent her many years in Denver Health, starting as a practitioner and then becoming for 20 years the CEO of Denver Health. And she's Professor Emerita of Medicine at the University of Colorado School of Medicine and a master of the American College of Physicians. She's highly prolific, written two major books. This other book that she wrote, The Lean Prescription, Powerful Medicine for Our Ailing Healthcare System. So let me just bring her on board here. Thank you so much for being here, Patricia. Oop, there you are. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
I'm so
Um,
happy to have you.
Let me explain my voice first to the listeners. I have spastic dysphonia, and the treatment for it is Botox. And when I first got it, I asked my doctor about it, and she said, "Well, you'll be very breathy after you get it, like Marilyn Monroe." And I said, "Will I look like her?" And she said, "No, that's a different doctor."
Well, thank you for explaining that. And you know what? I see you as such a brave woman physician leader. And I'm sure you've been mentored to so many other women. So thank you so much for writing this book. Tell us a little bit about why you wrote this book. What's the impetus for us? And then let's jump into what are those four things?
Well, there are a number of reasons, but let me focus on two. One is American healthcare has a lot of problems. And right now, we're excluding about half the problem solvers from the leadership positions. And women are not getting into leadership roles. We used to think it was a pipeline problem, but we've solved that. It's now a barrier problem. And the barrier is very well shown by the fact that 83% of frontline workers in healthcare are women, but only 30% of the C suite and only 16% of the CEOs. This is not right and it isn't fair. And this inequality will not go away unless we solve the problem of equity, which is, I think, one of the major barriers for women getting into leadership. Now, we often think about equality and equity as the same, but
Yes.
they're very different. And the difference really matters to women. And there's a great little cartoon that RWJF did to explain the difference between equality and equity. And they use a bicycle image. So with equality, men, women, children, and a disabled person all gets the same size and type of bicycle.
Right.
So only one person can actually ride it. And in point of fact, it's the man, not the woman, because most machines are built for men and their body size. With equity, everybody gets the size and type they need to succeed at the task, which is riding the bicycle.
So that's the
So,
bottom one here, equity.
yes, that's the bottom one. And so, equity is about leveling the playing field. And if we want to level the playing field for women physicians on the path to leadership, there are four things that have to be dealt with. The first one is maternity care. Now, you know, women are having the babies. We know this is going to keep going,
Right.
and we should acknowledge this. That would be a good thing. Um,
Yes.
and we are the only developed country that doesn't have paid maternity leave. And for physicians,
Paid maternity leave.
right,
Mhm.
all the other high income countries have this. And in some countries, it's quite long.
And
For,
paternity leave.
correct.
Yeah.
Parental leave uh,
Period.
for both women and men.
Right.
But for maternity leave, let's focus on that. So this starts really when women are residents. And of course, that's their childbearing years. And it wasn't until last year that the training program said you have to give 6 weeks of leave in a program that's 2 years long for either um, family uh, family leave, maternity leave, sickness of some type, um, without extending the training period. So you get 6 weeks without extending the training program if you're in a 2 year program. But we don't know how that's actually being operationalized. So
Right.
this is a big issue um, for women. Now it doesn't get any better when you get to become a faculty member. So there was a study done in 2018 that looked at 12 academic institutions. And I guess the good news is that all 12 had maternity leave. But the bad news is that it was highly variable, 6 to 16 weeks. And the really bad news was it depended on your chair.
Wow.
So when something depends on someone else making a decision and it's not guaranteed, that's, well, yes, it could happen. And maybe it doesn't. And um, so that's the first equity barrier that hasn't leveled the playing field.
Right.
The,
And not just that, I mean, I think women are penalized for if they are in their childbearing years because people look at them like, "Oh, well, she's probably gonna leave us for a good chunk of time, and I don't wanna hire her over somebody else who may not be." So we're already penalized in that respect, and we're not set up to succeed as leaders.
well, and it's interesting, other countries don't seem to see that as an issue. I was in Poland a couple years ago, and my guide's wife was one of the chief physicists at their big physics institute, and she was taking a year off. Now, somehow they were able to deal with this.
Wow.
Uh, why we can't deal with it is mysterious.
Yeah, I've
Um,
been I've been asked even like, "I just need to know if you plan on having any more kids because I need to prepare myself for that." I'm like, "Really? Can he ask me that question? I don't even know myself." So,
and the second equity issue about leveling the playing field is childcare. Um, and again, if you look at other high income countries, we have the second highest cost childcare and much less available and not as high quality. And if you look at women physicians who have a male physician partner, the women are spending 8.5 hours more a week on childcare and other domestic activities. That's another workday.
it is.
And uh, and so we need to really seriously look at affordable, high quality, readily available, convenient childcare.
Right.
Ideally, it would be at the workplace.
That's
Uh,
right. Yep.
and this is another issue that's really big, and we saw it play out quite dramatically during COVID, where women were disproportionately affected by the lack of childcare.
Very good point.
The third equity issue is family leave. paid leave. Women do 70% of all care for adults in families. And we can't just fit this in to everything else. We need paid family leave. And again, this is a gap in America compared to many other developed countries. And the fourth one is pay equity, which really is an issue that irritates me tremendously. A recent study by Doximity um, found that there was $100,000 a year difference between men physicians and women physicians on average. And that hadn't changed over years. And we've had the law for pay equity in America for decades, but
Yes.
it hasn't been operationalized.
Right.
Now, um, the American Association of University Women did a very simple study, which is so incredible that it'll make you gasp. They took the number of women physicians in the country and the average difference in pay and found out that as women physicians, we're losing $19 billion a year in income in aggregate. 19 billion. I mean,
Wow.
this is
Wow.
unbelievable.
Right.
And um, the other implication of this pay inequity is that it inhibits our accumulation of wealth, which is our gift to our children. Um, and it's been estimated that this pay inequity causes a $2 million lifetime gap for a woman. Now, they say women are not good at negotiating for themselves. So, you know what I tell women? You're negotiating for your children
Yep.
because that's your accumulated wealth.
Right.
Um, now, that this issue of pay inequity also can be looked at in another way. It's a time penalty. So if you look at academic medicine, a woman associate professor makes what a male assistant professor makes, and a woman professor makes what a male associate professor makes. And if you look at the timeline, usually for that promotion jump, it's 7 years for
Wow.
each of them. So we're getting penalized 14 years in our career overall if you're in academics. And the other thing, which is really important to point out, is that studies have looked at is this pay differential explainable by the usual variables like what discipline you're in, how long you've been in practice, your publications, your research grant? 40% of it is not explained by any variable that would be reasonable to use. So what does that tell us? 40% is bias.
Right.
So this pay inequity is important not only in and of itself, but because it inhibits us paying for those other three things that aren't leveling the playing field: maternity leave, family leave, and good childcare. So
So,
these are big issues. And if we
right.
can't address these four equity issues, we will not level the playing field and we will not get to equality in leadership. Of course, there are other issues that
Yes.
are barriers, but these are very,
That's
very
huge, and
important.
I love how you discuss this in your book, and you're addressing things that not really are on the forefront, even though we do talk about it, but you're putting it front and center, and I love that. How can we make sure that we're operationalizing these things that are already like people are aware of, but it's not front and center, and we don't have that chairperson who's implementing it? How can we make sure we do a better job?
Well, first of all, transparency. If you don't have transparency about these issues, you can't solve them.
Right.
And one of our previous governors in Colorado, Dick Lamb, used to say there are 4 steps to problem solving. The first step is no talk, no do, when you don't even know this is the problem. The next step is talk, no do, when you start to bubble up the issues. So, as women, in all our workplaces, we have to start bubbling up these issues in an organized way. The third step is no talk, do, where we have to start actually solving the problem. And as women, we have to make these issues transparent, and then we have to demand reasonable and timely solutions, and we have to monitor the implementation of those solutions. And the fourth step of problem solving is that golden sunshine when you've solved it and you go back to no talk, no do.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this interview. This has been enlightening. I really appreciate it. And once again, I'm going to show everyone the book To Get Times Now for Women Healthcare Leaders, a guide for the journey by Patricia Gabow. So tell us uh, tell us how can people reach out to you, Patricia, if they want to reach you regarding your book.
Well, even when I was CEO of a large organization, I answered all my own emails personally every day.
Wow.
So
Yes.
so you
That's
can
why you were successful.
so you can get to me at email, which I think you're going to show times for women at gmail.com. And uh, and I encourage you to look at the book. It's filled with both actual hard data to help you with understanding the barriers, as well as a lot of examples and interviews with 12 other women leaders who have walked different paths and come from different places to different types of leadership positions. So, thank you for having me.
No,
It's been
thank you so
great.
much. I'm very inspired by you, and I certainly will look forward to having you in our Women's in IR interventional radiology section, our Dream Big Book Club, because you are very inspirational. Even and you talk about your handicap with your voice, and nothing stops you from writing, speaking, and being an advocate for women physicians. So thank you so much for that. Thank you, everybody, for listening. My name is Dr. Elsie Coe. If you have a topic on physician leadership, please reach out to me at info@drlcco.com. And also, if you are looking for some training for your physicians or you yourself need that, go to leadphysician.org. We are starting in the beginning of September. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you, Patricia, and have a happy Sunday.
Thank you.